Abre Camino Collective is an entertainment company comprised of visual, theater, literary, and performing arts, redefining the American narrative through radical storytelling. And if that's not exciting enough, know that together as artists and collaborators, Victoria Collado and Vanessa Garcia, co-founders of Abre Camino, have worked in theater, TV, journalism, visual arts, academia, radio, the literary arts, and film. They have master's degrees, doctorates, and have worked on Broadway. Most recently, they've created the Amparo Experience, the immersive hit play that people in Español called Miami's Hottest Ticket, and had a sold-out 8-month run in 2019. It was a pleasure, a thrill, a delight to sit down with Vanessa and Vicky and talk about their experiences, talk about what brought them to this point as Broadway producers, and talk about the relationship between investors in the Cuban American experience and how we can help cultivate the investors having faith and confidence in the creators and the creators being able to pay back and everyone being lifted in the process. I was really inspired by them. They are doing such fabulous work. Lean into the conversation about their experience, hearing people share their stories after experiencing their theatrical process. This Miami's Hottest Ticket, the Amparo Experience, really just reminded me that theater is about building community. I personally think that theater is best enjoyed with a young person on one side and a grandparent on the other, and that we build societies as we exchange in this theatrical experience. I'm so glad to have Abre Camino Collective on the podcast. I hope you enjoy them too. Welcome to the show, Vanessa and Vicky. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you for having us. Wow, we're doing that. We started the thing where we start talking the same thing.
We're doing the twinsy talk.
Oh, that's so good. It just means that you're connected, right? That's awesome. The work that you two are doing is incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, we're having fun while we're doing it.
Which has been the best recipe, honestly, to have as much fun as possible while we're working.
So one of my questions we're going to get to is secret sauce. So let's get back to that recipe because that's got to be part of it. That's an ingredient. Vicky, you were named Best Director by the Miami New Times and was Assistant Director to Tony Tacone in the Tony-nominated Latin History for Morons on Broadway.
Yes, I was.
Tell me, Vicky, how did you and Janessa connect to create your company? I don't even know the story.
So actually, it's actually the biggest risk and the most, in Spanish, we call it cañona. Like it's like a kind of get in the way. I wedged in the weirdest way. So I was part of the Van Leer directing fellows over at Repertorio Español, which is one of the oldest theater companies in New York that does theater in Spanish. And so I was one of their fellows for 2 years. We had a resident director that was like kind of our mentor, and a friend of ours at that time that was producing one of Vanessa's shows called me because she wanted to get in contact with the resident director. And she said, "Hey, I'm trying to get in contact with this guy. Do you know if you can give me his number?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could totally give you his number, but you know I direct, right?" And she's like, "Yes. Oh my God, that's the most brilliant idea. Yes, of course, it's you. It's totally you. We're going to go up and we're going to do a short play of Vanessa Garcia's." I had a long time before then had actually read something of hers at this like new, what was it? The
New Theater had these like shorts. They were shorts essentially by people. Yeah, but they were like, I don't know.
They were shorts and they were super tiny. Yeah. And for some reason I had to read one of hers. I was like, "Oh, I really like this one." So that's how we met. And then Van, do you want to pick it up from there?
So then I go up to New York and I meet Vicky and she starts, I had always wanted to I was always looking for people who were, who could do things that were in my head, like every playwright. And when she started directing and adding movement and doing the things that the stage directions do a thing, and she was actually doing and adding and oh my God, magic. So I was like, okay, I really, really like this person, and this person might just be the creative soulmate. So, however, I had to leave New York and go back to, we lived in New York 7 years, 10 years around there, less than 10 years each, but at totally different times.
Yeah.
So then I go back to Miami and Vicky keeps sending me emails, like, hey, why don't you sign up for this? Why don't you do this? And we sort of keep in touch.
Yeah, I like to call it the courtship. It was the only time I was like, oh, you should really do this. Oh, you should really do that. But it had no strings attached. Like, it wasn't like, hey, I'm directing a thing. I just really believed in her work and I thought that her work was amazing. So I was like, this needs to go out there. Go, go, go.
Yeah. And so then I got a phone call to do what became the Amparo Experience, which is what you were talking about at the top, the Miami's Hottest Ticket thing. I got a phone call from someone named Paul Ramirez, and he said, hey, I heard you write about Cuba and you do plays, and we have this show and we want to do it. And it's like, it started out as this thing that was going to be like 20 minutes in a bar. It was never that. So the minute that it started to have legs as something more, and even before, even when it was 20 minutes at a bar, I was like, I know the director that needs to do this. Her name is Victoria Collado, and she's assistant directing Latin history for morons as we speak. So obviously you want her. And he was like, oh yeah. So he called her and immediately the three of us gelled. And then I want to say the rest is history, because that's the moment that everything really started, because we started working together in a way that it was just like never before. And I know the moment in rehearsal where I was like, I never want to work a different way again. Like, that was all nonsense. I remember it specifically. Look, I'm getting goosebumps. It was in that on top of like around, what was that studio?
It was a dance studio.
It was a dance studio
near like this famous street in Miami called 8th Street, which is like the big Cuban Little Havana street. So we were very close by, and this dance studio, and it was like a dance studio with like all these like props that the owner had, and then these massive mirrors.
Yeah. Because essentially the way we work is there's this script, and then since it's immersive, like whenever there were gaps in the narrative or Vicky was like, hey, that's not going to work. Or, you know what? It's going to take like 20 minutes, not the 10 you thought, girl, to get from there to there. You need to add stuff. So I would add in the room, like I would write in the room and give it straight to the actors. She would work with the actors while I was writing and then give them what I had written. And I was like, I never wanted, this is one super like energizing, fun, it's real, and it just was immediate.
And also, one thing that from my end as a director that was very exciting was the idea prior to, like, on the other end, I felt limited at times from a playwright. Like the playwright was like, well, you're getting too creative. Like you need to, I want less of your voice. And it's like, okay, great. Thanks. Yeah. It's really hard. But with Vanessa, it was the utter opposite, which was like, okay, what are your thoughts? And then it was like this melding together, like it just flowed, like the definition of flow. Yeah, I would say.
I had this thought while you were saying that. I was like, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I'm gonna say it. Which is that it's like midwives, you know what I mean? Yes. Where it's like you're not just like, okay, breathe and do this. It's like sometimes you gotta stick your hand in there, mm-hmm. And they have to, like, you have to be okay with that. Because if not, there's not going to be a baby at the end of this thing. So, you know.
That's actually a really good metaphor for directing.
Well, it's so clear how much you work seamlessly together. I was listening to the podcast's episode. So your podcast is Never the Empty Nest. I love it. I want to like showcase my nest and build twigs, and like little Lily talking about like, I love my nest. It's just so adorable. Like how you check in on your days. I love it. And I listened to the episode of the two of you with Ruben, who you've worked with.
Yes.
And you were like talking about how easy it was for you to gel. And I was like, oh, well, maybe that's Ruben's superpower. And maybe it is. But I think it's your superpower. Like your ability to gel with each other and with other creatives. That's got to be part of the secret sauce.
It's definitely part of the secret sauce. And I mean, we can save the secret sauce for later for when you ask that question. But I think that is one of our superpowers as a team, of like this creation. Every project that we've worked on together always feels like a family. Mm-hmm. It never feels like someone's voice isn't heard. Yeah. And we've both been in experiences where the opposite happens. So,
and what's interesting is that it's like the people who stay in these projects are there, and there's roots in this thing, and like we go on, and then the people who are like, I just want to do something all by myself, they sort of find their way out, like really just nicely. Nothing happens. They're just like, bye. It just happens because it really does become a community, I think.
Yeah, and that's at the core of theater. Like last night I went to watch this play that Vanessa had already seen. It's at one of the theaters that we worked with Ruben, and I'm going to work later this year, called Gable Stage. And it was just like the purest form of theater. Like it was just like pure. It was two characters. They're doing Heisenberg. So it's just two characters, and it's just like this nice flow. And it just made me really appreciate theater again. And the thought of like, there's multiple types of theater artists, but there are the people who do it because they love the collaboration. And then there are other people that do it because they specifically like their craft a lot, but they're not necessarily interested in the collaboration.
Yeah. And I also think that as Americans in theater, sometimes we have forgotten like the joy of all working together because there's a system, like here's this play and it gets passed on to the playwright, and the playwright's allowed for 3 days at the beginning, and then this happens, and then there's 2 weeks, and it's like, the system. And the system is necessary in order to make a machine move and all of that. But like right now, I'm working with a group of young playwrights who are amazing, and in something called Homegrown down here, run by City Theater. And at first, like I was like, hey, we're going to write a play together. There's 8 of them. We're all going to do it. It's going to happen. They were like, what? And they kind of freaked out. And some of them, had hesitation, and others were like, let's jump in. Where's the diving board? Now they're obsessed with it. They write to me every 3 seconds. You could see my WhatsApp, and they're like, when are you giving us notes on that? Oh my God, this is so exciting. Did you see what happened? And I'm like, yes, this is amazing. But yeah, the creation process in a group where you can still maintain your voice and also have this collective is really beautiful.
Okay, I want to talk about, Vanessa, a question for you. So you have written and worked for Sesame Street, Caillou, We Are Family, Dora the Explorer. You've also authored White Light, which won an International Latino Book Award and was one of NPR's best books. You've worked in academia, and your journals, as essays and thought pieces, have appeared in the LA Times, the Washington Post, ESPN. I'm not done. As a journalist, you are a featured writer, and essays have appeared in American Theater Magazine, the Huffington Post, and other publications. And like I said, I really enjoy your podcast, Never the Empty Nest. And I just bought your first picture book for children. I'm so excited about that. Yes.
Yay.
So clearly you span lots of genre. My question is, Vanessa, how does writing for Broadway differ from these other styles of writings that you've done so well?
Well, one thing I'll say is that something that's sort of connected in all of them is that there is a commercial aspect to them, to all of these things, in the sense that they are meant for people to actually go to, enjoy, like dig their hands into and do all that stuff. All of that, at the same time, some of like the journalism is really different. I think the journalism is different. And then at the same time, in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, it's really not, because what it's doing is opening up something that not a lot of people know about to a greater amount of people. Like I write a lot about Cuba, and Cuba is so specific, and yet it is connected to the entire world. And no matter who you are, it relates to you. And so how do you unpack, centuries and centuries of history into a moment that someone could read in, 1,000 words? That it's really well researched, and that you can also move through it, and it's somewhat entertaining. I know that sounds bad when you're talking about journalism, but it has to be, otherwise people don't read through it. You know what I mean? How do you use the techniques of fiction to move narratives forward? In that sense, they're all similar. However, they work differently in the sense of different people are going to pick up different things. So sometimes you're like, I need to write an article about this and a play because I need to reach all those people, So for me, it's fun to morph into genres because you're just changing voice and technique, but it's not necessarily that difference in the sense of goal,
Okay, awesome. Together, as playwright Vanessa, as director Vicky, you two are all things creative. It's so evident. this podcast looks at the producer role and relationship with investors, right? Nothing can happen without investors. I mean, I know some people can bankroll a show. Okay, great. But like, I don't know how many shows you can bankroll without getting some investors. And I think that process of investing in investors is also like building the nest, building the show, like getting all the buy-in, right? Here's the secret sauce, the secret sauce question. What have you found is the secret sauce to finding the right investor? Vicky, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think if I'm just going to really focus on our specific journey on investors and people who have chosen to like back us up is I think the best way is that I think the secret sauce is to be honest with what you're doing and staying true to the thing you want to make. I think that always brings the right people that want to support you and want to allow you to do your work, right? That those investors understand that you're clear on what you want, you're very passionate about what you want, and they know that you're the expert at making the thing that you want. And so finding the people that believe in the message, believe in you, because you continue to be as authentic. And I know that authentic has become like one of these posh words. I'm so British. It's a posh word. But the truth of it is like the actual authenticity of like, this is who we are. And this is the ground that we stand on. These are the morals that we stand on. And this is how we're going to communicate. Do you buy into that? And if you don't, that's fine. Thank you so much. We'll move on and it's a process. It's never the easiest. And I think we're still learning.
Exactly. I mean, we're definitely still learning, right? Something that an investor does is they're buying into you and the things that you can make. So it's like conversations, a lot of conversations. Sometimes we pitch something and we're like, hey, it's not that you can't pivot on a story, right? It's not that you can't like change and morph and like do something like that, right? But sometimes you're talking, you're making a pitch and the people on the other end are like, okay, it's not exactly what we're looking for and this and that. However, when you're talking and it's coming from a very authentic place, like Vicky's saying, and it's very clear that the kind of thing that you want to convey, that investor understands that everything is fluid in the sense of like, I'm giving you a draft of the first pitch of something, right? And there's going to be another one and another one and another one. So it's like this combination of subject and person. It's like dating, it's like dating because you're like, well, that didn't quite gel. There wasn't really a click there. Oh, okay. Not there. And then sometimes it's like, this is interesting. And then you got a court,
That's right.
You have to court. Because if you don't do that, like I could have missed out on my husband, because I was like, all right, I'll give him a chance. He seems pretty interesting, It wasn't like, wham, but this is the love of my life. So, it's like that.
Yeah.
I think.
I agree.
I love hearing that. It's just a different way of looking at the investor relationship from a producer's perspective, which is, it doesn't just happen and you meet someone and they give you all this money and you're done. Like it is a process. And I think for first time or emerging producers, that's the hardest thing. Like I want to build my stuff. I want to build it right now. Wait, like you have to cultivate this. And that, lifts the whole experience. It's a helpful courting process, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's super easy or fast.
At all. And we learned, there was like a period in our company where it was just like, boom, boom. Like we were just like pitching and da, 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 da. We were going through the whole thing. And we are who we are, meaning Vanessa and I are to the point of annoyingness. Like we're never going to give up. Let's be honest. Like this is
take risks also to the point of other people's annoyance.
Exactly. And which is, I think, also what makes it great. Like there's never the benefit of having both of us together is that we're both like, all right, let's go, let's jump. That makes those moments of like, oh, that one fell through or this is not happening. But just the consistency of like knowing that then there is a yes.
Yeah.
And you actually need less yeses than you need no's. So like you're probably going to get always more no's than you're going to get a yes. But that yes is going to be worth every single no you've gotten.
Yeah. They're training. The no's are like training, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the thing with your piece also, or with everything, right? There's going to be no's, and then there's going to be like, yes, yes.
I remember talking to John Leguizamo. We spent a lot of time together, just like going over lines and just a lot of time. And I don't know, in one of those breaks, he said this thing about auditioning that kind of like flipped a switch in my head to every actor, but now it's pertains to this. He's like, every time I would go audition, it was like a fun, new, like I got to perform, like I got to do the job. And so that kind of, I'm just like literally going to prescribe that to myself now. It's like every time you pitch, you're like, I get to do my job today. I get to go in there and inspire someone. So I think that bringing the positivity to the pitch is also helpful.
And you know what? If you're actually in the room with someone, there's also someone listening to you, which is pretty amazing. I mean, just that's amazing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You two have had a significant commercial investor sponsor your work, right? Yeah. And I'm interested in how was that? Like, what did you learn from that process?
Okay. When starting out, at least from my perspective as a director, the theater world tends to say things like, "Oh, the big sponsors, oh God, they're just the most controlled. They don't get us. They don't get us. They don't.
Selling out.
They're selling. You're selling out. Like it's a thing. It's a thing that every artist, you hear it and you're like, holy moly, quote unquote, selling out. But I actually felt a lot of freedom, and we always talk about this.
So, I mean, we should probably say that the sponsor that we had, right? The huge sponsor that we had for this show, the Amparo Experience, was Bacardi, the rum, because it was the story of one of the rums in their portfolio called Havana Club Rum. The creators of the real Havana Club rum. It's a very tricky story. You can look it up. It has a lot of entanglements, but they gave us a massive budget, and we felt total freedom.
I think that they kind of spoiled us for the rest of our lives, because they were like, all right, you're the experts here at what you do. We're going to allow you to do it. These are our notes. And it's like small things, like from the family member saying something like, the main character didn't wear a hat. He really liked his hair. Or like, just a lot of specific notes that belonged to their world, but it was utter freedom. And also it was working with a big budget that allowed you to dream, which is something that takes a long time to get to, unfortunately, in our industry.
And the other thing that it taught us, I think, that we knew we had inside of us and wanted, but that we were like, oh, this is actually the evidence of, which is that theater isn't just for theater people. It shouldn't just be this thing, this circle thing where, you are going to the theater because you're in the theater, and then, this is for everybody. That's the point, like that is the point. Everybody should be able to go see a show and feel and take something at the end and give something back, so I feel like when we did the Amparo Experience, the thing that we saw was that those audiences were people who didn't usually go to the theater. They went because they wanted to hear the story, because they heard that it was something you moved through. It was immersive. They went many times because there were 23 different ways to see the show. And it was an event, and that's why we called it an experience. And it was beautiful because people would stay after the show, and they would tell us in the back, there was a rum garden, and they would tell us after 2 hours of going through this experience, they would stay another hour and talk with family and with us and tell us their stories. We have a lot of stories right now that we're working on because of that, because of that garden in the back, because it was literally a garden. It was beautiful.
You talked about the idea of this communal experience in theater and people giving back. But that's really a concrete way that they could spend time and share their stories and give it back, like within the context of the theatrical experience. That's pretty special.
It was the most fulfilling theatrical experience so far. I want to say in my life. Do you say in yours too? Yeah. Because you would go and it wasn't like, oh my God, you're so great. It was none of that. It was like,
they didn't even, nope. It was just like, I have to tell you my story.
We watched, I will never forget this. I still feel like I was intruding in a moment, but I'm so grateful that I got to experience this. Like I watched a mother tell her daughter for the first time of what it was like to be a political prisoner in Cuba. for speaking her mind. And so I watched literally as the girl was like, this is a 40-year-old woman that's just like breaking down. And her mother's like, yes, this happened and that 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 happened. And all of this is happening. And there was us, there was also the actors, there was the other producers, there was the bar staff. All of these people are receiving all of these stories. And so you're just seeing the immediate result of the impact of the story that you're telling, the work that you're putting up. And that's life-changing in many ways.
I want to see this on The Great Colorful Way. Can we talk about being Cuban American on Broadway, like the system? Can we talk about why it played so well in Miami? It may or may not play commercially in Broadway. That's not necessarily where I wanted to go, but you brought it up, so let's go there. Like, why could it play there? What can you talk to it a bit?
I mean, we both know it can. We both know fully that it can. It's also why we're going commercial, because with commercial you say, I just need investors and we're going to make a thing happen, as opposed to I'm going to push this idea into a theater or whatever that is. So we absolutely think that not only our ideas, our culture, our an extension of what Amparo was, for example, can play into Broadway. I think it would invigorate it and it would be amazing. And I think people would love it. So I think we both think that too.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
I mean, so it's something that we had been talking very seriously about right before the pandemic hit, because our show closed right before the pandemic. And we were going to take it places, and there was a question like, is this something for Broadway? And that was a question, and why not? On Your Feet was on Broadway in terms of just a Cuban American story, for example. That's the Gloria Estefan and Emilio story, the Miami Sound Machine. People loved that show, and I think we can push beyond that.
Right. Which I think that's, I remember watching that show, and at least from like a Cuban American girl sitting down in a big theater at the Marriott Marquis watching another Cuban American girl star in the show, and all of a sudden these like huge 2 Cuban flags are flying in the middle of a Broadway stage. It's a very specific experience. I know that the people around me who weren't Cuban probably didn't feel what I felt, but I'm like, holy moly, what is happening, right? Like that, the idea of that being on stage means a lot. Mm-hmm. But the fact that someone is even getting a chance to know something else, I think that something that happens with the Latino community is that we get clumped up together. And there are different customs, and there are different thoughts, and there are different ways of expressing ourselves. And there's even words in Spanish that if you say bug in Cuba, you say that word somewhere else, it means something else, and you could be offending someone. So it's just this sort of like, all of a sudden allowing the fan to open up. Like we have this wonderful fan that's full of magic and all that. And you open the fan and you can actually see all the different colors inside, as opposed to like clumping us up together.
And the thing that's roaming through my brain while you're talking is like at that moment, the thing that other people did feel was that line that Emilio says, which is, this is what America looks like, like it's something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, they're trying to make it in the industry, and they're selling this like syncopation with super Latin beats and like this thing that is crossing over completely, and they're like, this is America, that's what this is. And you don't have to be Cuban to get that. You just have to be, you don't even have to be American to get that, but you definitely get it if you're American, right? And the thing that I think that we can do in that sense is also show what America feels like in a way that's real. And I don't think that people have actually, shown on The Great Colorful Way. Is that what we said? I love it too.
Yes, I love that. So true or false, one of the benefits of the awakening that we've had as a society through the pandemic, I hope, is a greater understanding and commitment to listening to more voices and more stories that have traditionally been not represented on The Great Colorful Way. True or false? Is there a shift? Are you feeling it? Are we part of it? Will we see something better in the future?
True. It's going to be a battle. On my perspective.
We're in it. We're like in the trenches. Yeah. We're in there. And I think I mean, I think we have to do it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the difference. And that's the click that I think happened, at least for some of us, which was like waiting for someone else to click with your work when there are not a lot of people, you know, in the gatekeeping roles that might immediately click, you know, that you would need that long courtship with and the whole thing. Well, we're going to have to do it. Like, we're going to have to do it.
Just to add something, I think that people forget that change, multiple voices, like democracy, like anything that allows your voice to be heard, is an uncomfortable situation. And so when we're seeking comfort, it actually doesn't allow for your brain to be like, oh, I'm not right. What are you saying? Like, the crashing of the thoughts and that discomfort is actually what leads us to a better place. So kind of embracing the fact, like, it's like when you work out, even though I love eating food, I also like working out. And I think that what's shifted that was I had a trainer once who was like, when you feel the tension and you feel the burn, that's where the work is happening. Like, when you're feeling the discomfort, that's where you're getting stronger. And so that idea of like allowing the discomfort to happen so that we can be a more unified like more unified in the sense of like allowing more voices to be in the game, I think that's going to be pretty exciting.
I was just gonna say one more thing since we're talking about Gloria and Stefan. You know, she has that. I do. And she has that song, which is like changes happen overnight.
Yes.
And it's really interesting. I love it because it's like, we obviously know that that's not true. There's, you know, the thing underneath the all the work under the iceberg, right? Like, there's tons of things that lead to something happening overnight, but then it does. Like, there is a tipping point. Like, all this and all that we've been doing, it's just going to go like boom. And then it's really going to be colorful. It's going to be so colorful. It's going to be amazing with glitter.
With glitter. I love that.
What do we need more of to make that like flywheel, like the turning point? Do we need more producers? Do we need more investors?
I do think that we need investors to take a chance. And understand that, it's a scary choice for an investor. I'm putting myself in their position of like, well, I'm going to put a lot of money. And I know that formula works because I've seen it work multiple times. But this is like, it's like investing in Apple when it was in the garage stage, right? Like, you know, and we feel that a lot because not only our stories are different, but even the models in which we tell stories, are also different. So people are like, I'm not sure if that's going to work. And we're like, we know it's going to work. And so getting investors to trust the artists and take risks, like what does it mean to take a calculated risk on a particular group or groups of people?
Yeah. And I think one thing that I learned from journalism that I could, you know, I think should be shared with investors is that if you go into a story thinking you know what the story is, you're doomed. You go into a story to discover the story. So you're going in and you're going to listen, do a lot of listening and a lot of sort of working around and researching and asking people and seeing what these subjects are doing. And you're researching and doing the thing. And then you're like, oh, that's the story. Oh my God, that is amazing. So I would say the same thing for people who are investing in, you know, Latinx, et cetera, all the stories. It's not necessarily, my story isn't necessarily the story you think it is. And if you go in thinking that our story looks a certain way, speaks a certain way, feels a certain way, and then we give you something different, that I feel like should be like a pause of, hang on, what is this? Have I been wrong? What's this? Maybe this is amazing. So I think that can be super exciting, but it goes with trust because, and this is not to say that if you don't have no track record, obviously no one's going to trust you. But like, we're talking about like, if you've put the work in, you've done everything that, you know, you have shows, you've done these things that then to push it to Broadway or to push it to level it up, that's where that jump in trust is necessary.
I want to hear about the projects you're working on, and then I have a wrap-up question. But we talked about the work, the need for the work, how investors can help create the work and give us trust, right? As we try something new. I love this idea that if you're investing in me because you think this is my story, hold on, because the story's even richer and more expansive than what you think. I love that. So let's talk about some of the stories that you're working on. Let's talk about Grace. Let's talk about Sweet Goats, Blueberries, Senoritas. Which one should we do? How about Sweet Goats, Blueberries, Senoritas? You want to tell us about that one?
I'll do that one quickly because that's now in January. So that opens at Portland Stage, and it's called Sweet Goats and Blueberry Senoritas. And I co-wrote that with Richard Blanco, who was Obama's inaugural poet. He invited me to write this with him, and it's been an incredible experience. At the lead is a Cuban-American baker, a chef, who is in Maine and is having this big rift with her mother. She's not sure whether to go back to Miami or stay in Maine. And it really, in the end, is about community, but the community we find. I won't say any more. I feel like you leave, there's sadness in it, but our intention was for people to leave uplifted. And hopefully it does that. And, food always does that a little bit. So that's in there. And that's up January 25th through February 12th at Portland Stage. And then we have Vicky and I upcoming #Graced along with Sarah Hughes. And should I say what it's about? Or do you want to give a little? Go. So that's up in...
that's up on May 4th through the 21st at the Adrian Arch Center, produced by Zoetic Stage along with Abre Camino Collective.
Correct. And it's going to be co-directed by Victoria Collado and Sarah Hughes, which is so fun to have two directors. At this one, we call it a road trip play because there's a woman at the helm of this road trip, and she happens to be a journalist, but her role as a journalist is blurring with influencer. And there's a whole lot of that in this play. Like, what is authenticity? What is social media? All of that. Anyway, she's on the road trying to figure out what it means to be American right now. And she's asking that question. And she's on the road with her love buddy. her new new lover, who is the son of the sponsor of this trip. And she's going around, but she also has a very, very personal journey and is trying to figure out the story of her mother in the United States, but nobody knows that except herself. So all of that is wrapped into this piece.
Yeah, I think that my favorite part about #Graced is that even though the lead is a Cuban American woman and all of that, it's an American story filled with unusual American characters, right? Like it's taking the road trip idea, like instead of having Jack Kerouac have an existential experience, you have all these people from all walks of life. Like there's a wayward nun, there is a questioning, transitioning teen, there's all these things that is like what America looks like today from this other perspective, while also being a unifying play, which is what I like. I like that it's kind of celebrating the differences in America and in a positive way, not necessarily like we hate everything. Yeah.
Last question. If there was another Cuban American producer listening to this podcast, what advice would you give them about finding investors for their important work?
Call us.
Definitely call us. That's number one. I think that one advice I would give is there's going to be a choice at some point for anybody who's hyphenate American of how much you want to include of your roots and how much you don't want to. And you have to find the balance of what is true to you. Vanessa and I are unapologetically Cuban American. Like we're unapologetically that. And we know other Cuban American creators, investors, producers who are actually, they don't connect with that part of themselves. But when you cross the line, when you're a hyphenate, I think it's important to find the voice that is yours and what stories you want to tell and how you want to tell them.
And I also think that it's important to see, I mean, I know we do this. We research people who are like us, not necessarily just Cuban American, but that are telling stories in a way that we admire and are getting funding and getting investors. You seek people out and you ask them questions and you go have coffee and stuff. The reason why I'm not joking, like call us, is because it's what Vicky said. Like, there's going to be investors that are going to want our story. And then there's going to be investors that are like, oh, I thought you were something else. And then we could be like, oh, give it to them because they're doing that. And then, you have this circle. You're never going to be making the same work. It's not, it's like saying that Americans are in competition with each other. You're not, right? Like, you're just telling stories.
We have to, and just to add a little bit to that, I think we have to break, and it's on the responsibility of all of us, but it can start from us, which is like we have to break that there's only one seat at that table, meaning there's only that one slot in that one season for the one Hispanic show. We have to evade that. We have to stop that because it's incorrect. All of these stories are American stories and they all deserve to be heard.
Yeah. And like #Graced, there's a Cuban American character, but then there's a South American character. There's an Argentinian, there's a Uruguayan, there's like a kind of like she hasn't said where she's from character, but definitely, there's just so many different characters.
Yeah. We just have to think bigger and wider.
Thanks for that distinction.
God, my Cuban American accent just really helped me out there.
I love it. Oh, Vanessa and Vicky, Abre Camino Collective, collectively, thank you for taking some time with me. You are each a joy and together a delight. I'm so excited for your path and like to be on your coattails and watch as this world explodes for you as it has. Congratulations.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much. And hopefully you'll come on Empty Nest. Never the Empty Nest.
Hopefully. Yes.
Hide with your super attractive family. Yeah. You need to make that happen.
You have a wonderful day. Thank you again. Oh, before we go, shout out. Where can people find you? Tell us your social.
Yes. So you can find our company at Abre Camino Collective on Instagram. And then you can find me at It's Vicky Lean.
And you can find me at Vanessa Garcia Writer. And then we both have websites and a company website. Company website, abrecaminocollective.com. Personal websites, vanessagarcia.org and
victoriacoyalo.com.
There we go.
We will list all of those in the notes because people will want to find you. They will need to find you. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you.